Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. Or right. Yeah,
All right.
You can do better than that, David. Come on.
I
give it to us.
really can't.
Yeah, you can.
All right.
No, like, keep
was
going
worse.
with further, like, you're in pain, you're burning.
The switch. The kryptonite.
That was very good, and I do appreciate you leaning away from the mic, because that won't destroy people's ear holes.
On it, yeah.
That was very good. That was a pretty, I'll say pretty good impersonation of the mighty Nicolas Cage
Big Daddy.
in the film we're talking about. I'm Reese. Across me we have,
David.
to his left,
Irina.
to my right,
Noah.
and the man who's YouTube famous for putting on a wetsuit and fighting some thugs on the sidewalk, we have...
AJ.
He's going.
At least I'm not wearing hockey pads.
The movie we're talking about is Kick-Ass, a movie that came out in 2010. It's directed by Matthew Vaughn, who also directed Layer Cake, Stardust, X-Men First Class, Kingsman: The Secret Service, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, and The King's Man, most recently. When I think of Matthew Vaughn, I just thought of this today, and I'll see if y'all agree with me. I think he is like if Edgar Wright and Guy Ritchie had a baby.
I could see that.
Like, he's got the punchiness and the music cues and, like, the cleverness of Edgar Wright, and he's got, like, the crassness and, like, the harder edge that Guy Ritchie does as well.
Guy Ritchie does a comic booky kind of style to his
especially
films.
with Kingsman. I feel like that's the perfect, like, combination of the two of them.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to take away from his own identity. He definitely has his own identity. But if there's two directors I would kind of smash together that I think most closely equals this guy, it's those two. But this is our first Matthew Vaughn. What do you think of this guy's filmography? Are y'all fans?
Yes, I am.
He likes his colors.
He likes his colors.
Do you like that?
Do you like his colors?
I like his colors.
And that question was to maybe like get y'all to talk about Matthew Vaughn, but I guess we can just say
we
that
can talk
we
about
like
his
him.
colors.
I was just saying, colors are good.
Irina, any thoughts?
I've liked some of the things I've seen him do, but I haven't seen all of his work. So it's a director that is sort of on my radar, but not really. He's never really I don't know, like popped up in my mind when I think of films I want to watch. So
Which ones have you not seen? Not like Kingsman?
I've seen 2 of the Kingsman movies, so the first and the second.
I liked the third better than the second one.
I haven't
seen
seen
that
the
one either.
third
Yeah.
one.
pretty
So
good.
I'll have to check it out.
It's the one that takes place during like World War I or something. It's
Oh, that's cool.
Like the
Okay.
origin of the
I think Kingsman was the most notable one I've seen. The rest I can't really remember.
Yeah.
I will say though, Edgar Wright's movies have a lack of intensity. If they're intense,
Edgar Wright movies.
Sorry,
have a lack of
not
intensity.
Edgar Wright. Sorry, Matthew Vaughn. But also,
Wait, are you really?
well, no,
I think
hold
they're
on.
very like they're aggressive almost.
So they are aggressive, but they don't feel like the weight, like the stakes aren't as high. Even in Kingsman, it's very poppy, very fun.
It's poppy, but
Even though they're intense, I don't feel like it's like a James Bond movie. He always does movies like Edgar Wright where there may be intensity, people may die, but it's still fun.
yeah. AJ, what's your familiarity with Matthew Vaughn, and do you like this director's other work?
Mainly the Kingsman, the first and second one. I haven't seen the latest one yet, as well as I guess he was kind of Actually, you said you made the Guy Ritchie connection.
Yeah.
I think he was a producer involved on some level in Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. So
Yes, actually, and that's maybe where I had the this idea that there was some similarity there, because I do think I did read that somewhere, but I guess that subconsciously made it into my mind, and I'm like, oh, he is kind of Guy Ritchie-esque at times. But Irina, you
Right.
forgot Stardust. I thought you loved that
Oh,
movie.
that's right. Okay, I do. I don't really associate them, I guess.
Yeah. But that one has almost a Princess Bride like kind of
Yeah.
feeling
so
to it. And Mark Strong again. There you go.
It's true. It's true. Stardust is really good. That's if you haven't seen it.
And
You
X-Men
would
First
like it,
Class?
probably.
Irina?
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I
He
don't
does a good
remember.
job. He
I
does
don't
a good
know.
job.
I don't. This is a
I love
director
how
I just don't really think of.
I love how this started with, yeah, I had seen Kingsman and the sequel, but all the others, I don't know.
I think it's because Kingsman and this film have a little more in common in my mind than his other works.
Yeah.
Like the rest of them seem a little more, minus Stardust, a little more on the serious side. So you don't see that kind of punchy, quippy part coming out.
Yeah.
So.
The movie stars Aaron Taylor Johnson, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Chloe Grace Moretz, Nicolas Cage, and Mark Strong. It's written by Jane Goldman and Matthew Vaughn, and it's based on Kick-Ass by Mark Millar. And I've heard it said Millar, not Miller, so I'm going with Millar.
Millar.
Which I think is weird, but hey, that's his name.
Millar,
and John
darling.
John Romita Jr. I did read somewhere though that the script for this movie and the comic were kind of made at around the same time, but I think the comic came like just very marginally before the actual making of this movie. And there was another movie we talked about recently that I'm trying to remember which one it was, but the comic was made at the same time. What do y'all remember which movie that was?
Oh, was that Wild Wild West or whatever thing?
I don't think it was Wild Wild West. Cowboys and Aliens.
Oh, Cowboys and
Right?
Aliens was.
Am I,
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. It was
Okay.
Cowboys and Aliens. I'm surprised I remembered
Oh
that.
no, you know why I thought of that
Scott
one
Pilgrim
was
at
because
some-
it was around the same point.
You said Scott Pilgrim?
At some level, the whole run hadn't been completed.
Oh, okay. Had any of
What?
y'all read, or did any of y'all read the Kick-Ass comic?
Nope.
From what I've heard about it, it is darker. It still has some of that comedic edge, but it's a lot more like, I don't know, go. It really goes for the jugular. So I think the tone of this one was lightened up a little bit, and it's less. I don't know. Just the tone of this one was lifted a little bit from the dark nature of the comic. And I'm saying dark. It's not dark. It's just more just cutthroat, I guess. For those that are new to this show, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So you guys, had y'all seen Kick-Ass before this episode? David?
I had seen, I want to say, the first 20 or 30 minutes when I was in high school, and that was about it. I don't know why I stopped, because it's not a bad movie. Mm-hmm. I'll leave it there. I didn't have any other sort of... I remember liking what I saw. I don't remember anything.
What was the
after that.
context? Was it like at a friend's house?
No,
or-
I think I was just at home on like a Saturday or something, and maybe something came up where I had to stop watching it for some reason. I just don't remember.
Irina, how about you?
I had seen it before once, but it had been a while back and I forgot a lot of the details. So watching it again, there are definitely scenes that I do remember for sure, but I just didn't know how we got to them.
Noah?
I think you showed me this one yet again, Reese.
I'm not gonna deny it, but
No, I know what happened. You for my birthday, I hadn't seen it.
oh, I did buy it for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
you or either my birthday or Christmas. I can't remember.
I bought
But you
you
got me two.
That and Expendables.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, you got me two Blu-rays. This was one of them, and Expendables was one of them. And
I don't know why I thought like, man,
Yeah.
the Expendables, Noah will really go for this. But I
Well,
think Kick-Ass was more like something I could see you enjoying, and the other
Yeah.
one was just like Expendables. That's a new movie right
Yeah.
now. I'll just hand that to you.
Well, yeah, and I think we watched them, and
I don't think we watched Expendables because I, to this day, have not seen to the end of that movie. I've watched I will actually go on
I
record.
watched it.
I will go on record and say The Expendables is the first one is the movie I've tried the most to watch but never made it to the end. Like
Wow.
I'm only ever able to get like 30 minutes into that movie.
But
It's
you're like
kinda
all
fun.
about Planet Hollywood movies.
I really love Expendables 2. That's where that movie really that's where that series actually finds its mojo. Like it's
Okay.
just the right level of like over the top zaniness and dumb one-liners. But the
Alright.
first one,
it's like Fast and Furious.
the problem is the first one tries to take itself slightly too seriously. How about AJ? How about you? Had you seen Kick-Ass before this episode?
Yeah, I remember the trailers for it and really wanting to see it. And I think I eventually got around to it just streaming somewhere randomly. Kind of remember being let down. I kind of feel like I expected more gravitas from Johnny Depp's performance.
Are you sure you're not talking about Johnny Knoxville?
Yeah, Johnny Depp. He's got like cancer, and
what?
When the FBI come, there's a whole, I don't know, he's dying.
I don't understand.
Black Mass.
Oh,
Black Mass.
gosh.
I'm so surprised you didn't go for Jackass.
That's too on the nose.
It is a little bit. Black Mass. Wow. That is a
It rhymes.
stretch. It does. How about Kick-Ass? Had you seen Kick-Ass?
Yeah, I had a few times. I don't remember when I first saw it, but definitely have seen it multiple times. I don't have a lot of familiar with the comic, other than I know that it's not well regarded generally. I don't think it's one of Miller's best works in most people's opinion, or Romita's artwork is also not. I don't know. This is all secondhand knowledge.
No,
so
you're
speak
right.
for myself, but
You're right. The movie is often regarded as one of the few examples of the movie being better than the source material.
Yeah, I think the comic is criticized for being overly like graphic just for the sake of shock and just because, instead of actually contributing and having shallow characters and dialogue and stuff. So, but again, that's hearsay. I can't speak for personal experience with it.
Yeah. For my part, yeah, I saw this movie. I think I saw it in theaters, actually. It was on the tail end of... So comic book movies were in. They still are in today, but it was like the first generation of this resurgence of comic book movies. Like Spider-Man was big. X-Men was big. The Dark Knight had come out. And in addition to that, you had these big comedies like Superbad, Knocked Up, all
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four, a big comedy, yeah. But, and I think this was trying to this was like combining those two, I don't know, elements into this subversive thing. So me being a fan of both comic book movies and now being a fan of like subverting comic books, like with Watchmen and all that stuff, and seeing what you could do with that medium that's different. I was kind of excited for this. I was like, okay, interesting, because I hadn't heard of Kick-Ass. I thought his costume looked dumb. I mean, that's the point, is what I learned. But I was like, I like my heroes to look cool. But I was still down with this violent take on a comic book hero and thought that was a new novel thing. So I watched this in theaters, I believe. And it is, yeah, I did. I definitely watched it in theaters. And bought no of that Blu-ray because I liked it once it came out. So I think I had only seen it I've maybe seen it one or two times, once in theaters and once with that Blu-ray that I got Noah. So this is it's been a long time since I revisited this movie. So it's a memorable movie. So I don't want to say it felt like a fresh watch, but it was definitely like, oh, I'm in the mood to watch this again. Like there were no scenes in the rewatch that surprised me, like, oh, didn't remember that. But yeah, that's kind of where I am with Kick-Ass. With that said, David, you want to give us that quick call to action?
All right, everybody, you know the drill. Get on your phone and go on to that Apple Podcast and give us that 5-star review. If you don't have Apple Podcast, use whatever platform you have. Give us a review. It probably does something, because that bumps us up in the algorithm to go in front of other people, and then we get more listeners, and that's what we want to do. Yay. We also have an Instagram. We also have a YouTube and a Twitter. Yeah, we got a Twitter. Yeah.
Also, to add on to that, we do this at no cost. In fact, it is a cost to us in terms of the time in our lives we put into researching the stuff and actually recording the episode. And
having to deal with each other, talk to each other.
Yeah, listen to each other's grating, annoying voices.
Huge toll.
So anything that anyone is able to do to help us out, I mean, it's much appreciated. Just so we could keep this show chugging along. All right, David, so we are going to go back to you for that story. All right. Take it away.
How come nobody's ever tried to be a superhero?
Well, I don't know. Probably because it's impossible.
Putting on a mask and helping people? How's that impossible?
Dude, if anybody did it in real life, they get their ass kicked.
Oh, no, I'm just standing around, you know. No, not... Ah! I was just a regular guy.
Hey, gorgeous.
Hey, my only superpower was being invisible to girls. But the comic books had it wrong. You don't need a power to be a superhero.
Leave him alone! It's none of your business!
Yes, it is.
Hey, there's a dude dressed like a superhero that's fighting a bunch of guys.
Who are you? I'm Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass has become the latest internet phenomenon.
This is awesome.
He's actually pretty good.
He should call himself Ass Kick instead.
He's inspired a wave of real-life superheroes.
Tool up, honey bunny. It's time to get bad guys.
You wanna go fight some crime?
Let's see what you can do.
Dave Liszewski is an ordinary teenager who lives in Staten Island, New York. Inspired by comic books, Dave plans to become a real-life superhero. He purchases and modifies a scuba diving suit and arms himself with batons. During his first outing, he gets stabbed and hit by a car. After recovering, he gains a capacity to endure pain and enhanced durability due to having some bones replaced with metal. God, could they not phrase that in like a worse way? Like, whatever. In his absence from school, a rumor spreads that he is gay, and as a result, his longtime crush, Katie Doma, immediately attempts to become his friend. Unhappy with this misunderstanding, Dave nevertheless appreciates the opportunity to get closer to Katie. Dave returns to crime fighting and gains notoriety after saving a man from a gang attack. Calling himself Kick-Ass, he sets up a MySpace account where he can be contacted for help. Responding to a request from Katie, he confronts a drug dealer, Razul, who has been harassing her. At Razul's place, Kick-Ass is quickly overwhelmed by Razul's thugs. Before they can kill him, though, two costume vigilantes, Hit Girl and her father, Big Daddy, intervene, easily slaughter the thugs, and leave with their money. After coming home, Dave realizes that he is in over his head and plans to give up crime fighting for good. However, Hit Girl and Big Daddy pay him a visit and encourage him. Big Daddy's real identity is Damon McCready, formerly an honest cop. Framed by the mafia boss Frank D'Amico, he was jailed. His wife committed suicide, leaving behind his daughter Mindy. Against the protest of his former partner Marcus Williams, Damon trains himself and Mindy in preparation for getting revenge on Frank. They have been undermining Frank's operations by raiding his warehouses, robbing his money, and destroying his drugs. Frank believes that Kick-Ass is responsible for the attacks and targets him, though he mistakenly kills a party entertainer who is dressed like Kick-Ass. Frank's son Chris suggests a different approach and poses himself as a new vigilante named Red Mist and befriends Kick-Ass. Chris plans to lure Kick-Ass into Frank's lumber warehouse and unmask him. However, they find the warehouse on fire and Frank's men dead. Red Mist retrieves a hidden camera he earlier placed in the warehouse, and he sees recorded footage of Big Daddy killing the men and burning the warehouse. Red Mist and Kick-Ass part ways. D'Amico watches the footage and learns of Big Daddy. Following the event, Dave decides to quit being Kick-Ass. He reveals his identity to Katie and clears up the misunderstanding about him being gay. She forgives him and becomes his girlfriend. However, Red Mist contacts him again and tricks him into revealing Big Daddy and Hit Girl's location.
So we have our opening scene, a unnamed superhero with a cool-looking red wings at the top of a skyscraper, and the music is swelling.
Dun, dun, dun,
and you're like, oh, this is our Superman scene. He's gonna go bursting off into the sky, or he's gonna dive and then swing upwards, and it's gonna be cool. Nope, he dive bombs straight into a car, and everyone's shocked. And
Aim for the bushes.
Yep. And that is immediately setting the tone as to what to expect for this movie, I feel like. This is going to be a quote-unquote realistic take on superheroes, although still very much heightened in certain ways. Almost in a cartoonish type of way, but like no one is immortal, yet this is still kind of a cartoon. How did y'all think about just this opening scene here that kind of sets the tone for the movie?
I think it's nifty.
It is nifty. I also like that people clap for him as he's like diving, as if they all believe that he might fly. They're like, yay! And then he hits the car, and it's like, oh,
I
that's
do
right.
think it's a good tone setter, though, for the rest of the movie. It kind of sets you up for who your hero's gonna be, pretty much, but also at the same time grounding you and telling you, hey, this is real. These guys aren't super powered.
Grounding you in the sense that this hero is now ground meat.
Yeah.
So, is it a Spider-Man thing to do the dialogue over the top narration where it's just like, that's me, a kid in high school?
That was very much a Sam Raimi Spider-Man thing,
Yeah.
especially in the first one, where it was almost this kind of treacly, sappy, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it was like, you don't know my story.
His
blah, blah,
voice
blah,
is
blah, blah.
even
Like,
similar to this character.
well, you noticed that his voice sounds very Tom Holland-y.
Yeah, it
in
does.
a sense.
Yep.
By the way, speaking of Aaron Taylor Johnson, we can move on to that part. We're introduced to his character. He's English, by the way, in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like,
he does a pretty good job.
He does, I think, okay, people get rag on this guy for his performance in Godzilla because he's so, like, dry and nothing in that movie, which I agree. But this guy can act. Like, Aaron Taylor Johnson is when I told you, David, I think it was, where I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy from Bullet Train.
Blew my mind.
You were like, what? Like,
my brain was like, who could he be?
Yeah.
Like, my brain didn't even know which character he was.
Yeah, so, like...
Age him up, give him a mustache.
Tangerine, baby.
I think he does such a good job at grounding this movie, and I never once questioned that he was, like, putting on some sort of accent. He felt like this dorky teen, kind of like how you would imagine someone who is late into high school and still bullied and picked on, and I don't know, I just thought his mannerisms were perfect, and I think it's a good performance.
And you also have Evan Peters here for the double Quicksilver action.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, you got his friends, Evan Peters and Clark Duke. They're kind of the trio of friends.
Well, and as Noah was saying, double Quicksilver.
They're both, and they both become Quicksilver later on.
Yeah, that's weird.
I know.
I don't like... Which is weird. You would never expect Evan Peters to be like, wow, he's going to be the really successful Quicksilver and the other one's not. Especially when you compare the two looks of Quicksilver, which I think Aaron Taylor Johnson looked like a cooler Quicksilver. And Evan Peters, when they revealed his look, he had those long white locks and he just kind of like looked
silvery.
I don't know, slumpy. I don't know. It was
slumpy.
Like a
delinquent. You know what I mean? But then his turned out, it was all about the performance and the portrayal, and it turned out so cool.
I actually like Evan Peters as Quicksilver better, though Aaron did a good job as well.
And then there's his other friend from Hot Tub Time Machine, which I don't.
Yeah, Clark
remember.
Duke.
Oh, there you go.
In this phase, this guy was showing up in a number of movies in just this type of role, like just the side.
He's the classic.
Guy.
Hey, that guy.
Yeah,
he was in The Office near the final season.
That's right.
One of the interns.
And I'm always kind of annoyed by him. I don't really.
Me too.
I don't really.
I like him.
I don't really like him.
I think he's fine, but it seems like it's more the role that was created during this time that is just not very interesting to me. Like, almost vying for one of those Superbad adjacent characters.
He always seemed like a Jonah Hill knockoff.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Like trying to be that level, but you can't be Jonah Hill.
So I think he does a fine job at it, but it's just kind of like once you see that character over and over again, you get tired of it really quickly.
Yeah. So we have Dave Lazuski. He's picked on at school. He's always observing crimes in the city. He's getting beat up by people. Like his money's getting stolen. And he's like, why does no one ever stand up to anyone? Why does blah, 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 blah? And I want to ask y'all, do you think the progression from him just immediately buying a suit and starting to fight crime is a little too quick? Or are you on this movie's wavelength as it being like a semi-comedy and it's fine that it's just zipping through this? AJ, how about you? I haven't heard from you.
Yeah, I think, the minimal setup otherwise, and, it's just the tone of the movie and the pacing, it's fine. He kind of has his necessary argument with his friends that, he would want to do something, and they wouldn't, or they, would be more reluctant to, and he's really serious about it. So it's not the most amazing transition, but I mean, it works.
Yeah.
I would say it's a pretty, for me at least, they could have contextualized it a little bit better. Take a couple minutes to make the city look even more, I guess, hostile and dangerous. And they do that a little bit. But not quite enough to make it personal to the hero or to our main character. However, I do think that the point of his character is that he kind of fantasizes about being a hero. He's not really out to do it for the right reasons.
I think it's
more about, I want to be a hero.
How cool would that be?
It would be so cool if I could just knock these guys out.
It makes sense with the age group too, because at that point you don't really realize how dangerous things are. You kind of see yourself as somewhat invincible.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I could do this. You know?
The abruptness of it, especially when he goes from getting the costume to just jumping straight out there, I think really does lend itself in a positive way to the story, because it's supposed to be ridiculous. Like a high schooler's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And he just does it and then gets his ass kicked.
And he's kind of just that it sets up his character too. Like, you know what? Why don't I just do this?
I guess what I'm trying to get at though is you think of the standard structure of a comic book movie.
Right.
Literally almost every hero you think about in those comic book movies, something happened to them to force them into a position to adjust into being a hero. Whereas in this one, he just decides one day, I'm going to do this.
Well, that's because that initial part isn't that point of the story you're bringing up, because
but
it's later.
But I think even Matthew Vaughn realized this with Kingsman, where it was, he like perfected the art of like transitioning into someone being more heroic.
The hero
that
journey.
Character is like, in a way that character is forced into that position as well, and then he's like, maybe I do want to be a Kingsman. Like, I hadn't thought about this before, but maybe this is something I want to do. I almost find it a little jarring in Kick-Ass how quickly he just purchases a suit and starts kicking and punching people. But
he's bad at
it. But then the movie adjusts and it becomes more interesting because as you said, he's bad at it.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time for him to get good. And I wouldn't even say he's good by the end of this movie.
He's not.
He has one moment. So I do think it course corrects.
It's endearing. I think because of the fact that he never actually quite learns what he's doing, and it's purely from the quote-unquote goodness of his heart, is kind of funny. Especially that he ends up somehow gaining kind of superpowers by getting beat up so bad.
He just can't feel as well.
And he's got stronger bones.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
So meanwhile, as the movie points out in its comic booky nature, we have Chloe Grace Moretz and Nicolas Cage portraying Hit Girl and Big Daddy. Her name's Mindy. His name's something. But
Damon McCready.
I wouldn't have remembered that. They don't say it enough. No one calls him Damon. Because
he's just daddy.
Yeah, but they're in this sewage area, a aqueduct or some area like that, and it's this very like he's got this sing-songy way of talking to her like his daughter, yet it's heightened by the fact that he's holding a gun and he's like shoots her right in the chest. He warns her like, hey, all right, you got to do this. And then she's like, oh, but we got to buy ice cream later. Da, 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 da. And he's like, okay, but you got to be shot 2 more times.
No wincing.
And no wincing.
I think this, if you're not on board with what's happening with these two characters, the movie will not work for you at all. Like, I think if you are not on the wavelength of this type of humor, which is kind of the through line of the in-your-face crass type of humor, but also kind of like also giving you a lollipop at the same time to just,
it's the pre-Deadpool
like
Deadpool.
Yeah, if you're not on that, if this doesn't make you laugh or you don't enjoy this scene, this movie is not for you. Let's get a round table. Did we enjoy the introduction of these two characters here?
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
I thought that was a hilarious and really good way of getting the audience attention. Hate it or love it, it gets your attention. Like it's funny. Even if you don't find it funny, it's kind of jarring. I don't know. You're like intrigued by these two characters. Like, how does this relationship work?
Yeah.
I think this movie does a good job of a certain kind of comedic cadence that creates balance with the very serious kind of off-color humor, but also making it fun and not like you shouldn't take it too seriously, you know?
Yeah.
So I think there are some people that don't really like that humor much, and I get that. I think for me, I do like it. And so I'm on board, especially with anytime I see Nicolas Cage, I don't know, it just puts a smile on my face.
I know, me
and
too.
This is one of the few movies where he still stands out, you know, like, oh yeah, that's Nicolas Cage playing this character, you know, but it still somehow works for me because
it
it's
does.
all very tongue in cheek.
He's what I'd call a national treasure. Get it?
I just don't know how he gets away with some of these impersonations. Like in any movie he's in, it always feels like he goes over the top in some direction or
he
another.
does.
And you're like, who
Yeah.
let you do this?
But it's in the right way.
yeah, I
weirdly.
know.
Like, it's-
I love him.
Yeah, like it's for this movie in particular, it sets it up perfectly to house both Hit Girl and Big Daddy. I think it's just the right amount of weird comic bookiness, but not really, to allow you to be able to see Nicolas Cage as like, oh yeah, he exists in this world.
Also, fun fact about that opening sequence is I can't remember if it was Chloe Grace Moretz who talked about it or if it was Matthew Vaughn, but there are 3 or 4 big scenes in this movie that I think Matthew Vaughn was talking about it. He was pitching that scene where she gets shot by her dad, the fact that he wants her to swear like a sailor the whole movie, and I think like Nicolas Cage's Big Daddy catching on fire and dying alive, basically. And the studios were like, absolutely not. And like, I think he was saying like they were completely like wincing, and they're like, don't make us do this. And he like doubled down on it, and somehow got his way.
No, what's actually crazy about this movie? I'm glad you brought it up. So many people were disagreeing with some of the, like, he could have gotten a green light on this movie a few times, but he doubled down, as you said, on like, no, it has to be this way. So no one was going to give him the funding. So this movie was independently financed. Matthew Vaughn himself helped fund this movie. And then ultimately, once the movie was completed, I believe it was Lionsgate that finally, like, they saw the product and were like, okay, we'll distribute this. So this is technically an independent movie that just got bought up by a semi-big production company.
Lionsgate? You think they're semi-big?
They're okay.
pretty big.
There's like the big 4 or 5. Like, you have
MGM,
Universal, Warner
Disney.
Brothers. No, not MGM. Universal, Warner Brothers, Disney, Paramount, Fox, which is now owned by Disney, and I think I'm missing one. Am I missing one? I don't know. But Lionsgate has always been trying to like nudge its way in there, and still I would not say is quite there. They had a couple big franchises like Hunger Games and Saw and Divergent, but I still don't. They're just still not quite there. So Lionsgate did agree to distribute this based off of the Matthew Vaughn's all that self-financed work.
It's called Passion, Reese.
It is called Passion. Thank you. That's really the word I was looking for.
Honestly, because I mean, it's the kind of person. It almost gives me that. Love to tie it back to Lord of the Rings, but the fact that they were trying to get that movie done in at least 2 movies, and every studio was like, no, but he kept pushing, and then finally found New Line, and they're like 3 movies.
Yeah.
So just
you love it.
You got to keep pushing if you believe in it.
You hear that, kids? But I want to say Chloe Grace Moretz I love Nicolas Cage, but Chloe Grace Moretz is so good in this too. Especially for her age, like to do this at that age. Really? Like when you're watching her, you're
11 years old.
Kids are supposed to be at this age. They're supposed to be insufferable, and like you hate watching them try to act. But she completely blended in with this movie. It never felt like she was acting. Seemed like she was having a good time. And genuinely pulls off like the cursing and the violence and the nature of that character.
She kind of makes me think of the way Macaulay Culkin was, where it's like
they have that it factor.
They just know what the director is telling them to do or wanting them to do. You know, like they have that kind of presence of mind or that capacity to understand how they're supposed to be in a scene. And so it must have been, honestly, exciting to work with her as a director,
Yeah.
where you're like, okay, yeah, this kid gets it. Like, we
And it
don't have to
wasn't-
do millions of takes.
And it wasn't just this one movie. She's been good in a lot of things that are like against type for a kid actor to do, like the Let Me In, and
Yeah.
she was so good in that as well.
So also she trained for 7 months, like with martial artists and just learning how to do some of the choreography. Now, granted, she obviously had stunt doubles, but she did 7 months of training at 11 years old. And I think it was
Some of the cuts in the action cuts in the movie didn't look like it was stunt doubly.
yeah,
So-
well, they did a good job. She did a lot of her stunts, but not like the crazy
Not
ones.
all of them,
But I remember there was a sort of COVID reunion conversation she had with Christopher Mintz-Plasse, also known as McLovin, and he was talking about how he had to do absolutely nothing and was told to be as skinny.
Is that how he is in interviews? Like when they... And we have Christopher Mintz-Plasse, also known as McLovin.
I think
even though it's not-
mainly for our listeners, because at least for me, I don't know Christopher Mintz-Plasse by his name, but
I
I know
do.
McLovin.
I do.
All right, well, maybe I'm the dumb one. But
He's in How to Train Your Dragon.
He's in Role Models as well.
okay, shut up. But regardless, he was regarding how he remembers seeing her off training and doing push-ups and just like all these crazy stuff, and he was told specifically to remain as twiggy as possible and just lame.
Man.
And he got into a push-up competition with Chloe Grace Moretz. He's like, "Did I win that? I don't remember." She's like, "Sure."
Sure.
She's like,
I'll
I
be
can't
nice."
remember.
Yeah.
You probably won. And I just couldn't stop laughing.
AJ, are you on this movie's wavelength at this point with Big Daddy and Hit Girl doing their thing?
Yeah, there's still a little bit of, I don't know. Overall, it's pretty. I'm on board with the energy and everything. I kind of wish that even the props, or the costume design, Nicolas Cage's, Batman-esque suit is, pretty cool. I wish Hit Girl's mask didn't look like it was like cut out of a piece of felt.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
always looked
Everything else,
ill-fitting. Yeah.
Yeah, when everything else seemed like it was really, heavily invested in and
Yeah.
just, a lot of time and energy in as well. But I'm on the fence on Big Daddy's quirkiness. I mean, I think overall it works. I think it kind of flirts with the edge of too silly.
Yeah.
And for my taste, but it never really fully crosses all the way across the line. Yeah, overall, I'm on board. Mark Strong, as always, a good villain. He's got plenty of practice doing it, but I kind of believe this world that they're in.
Yeah.
Given that this is a real world, people trying to be heroes, sans the supernatural powers and stuff. I'm on board that this is a real enough world that it's believable these things could happen, I guess. So
Yeah. And let's quickly talk about Mark Strong and Christopher Mintz-Plasse as Mark Strong. I don't know his name in this. David, help me.
DeMarco.
DeMarco.
Or D'Amico?
D'Amico.
Frank D'Amico.
Yeah, so let's talk about Mark Strong as Frank D'Amico and Christopher Mintz-Plasse as
Chris D'Amico.
As Chris D'Amico, a.k.a. The Red Mist. So this is one of those first movies where Christopher Mintz-Plasse is trying to prove himself outside of the iconic McLovin role, playing against type here. Is he able to do it? Do you forget the McLovin in this performance?
No. and he was trying to be the lead role, actually, when he auditioned. And they're like, we'll give you a secondary role. Like, you're just too goofy.
Do you know what makes me sad? I actually do think he does a different enough job in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it's almost the Harry Potter thing with Daniel Radcliffe. Like you're just always going to be Harry Potter. It was just such an iconic thing.
Yeah.
Although I think finally Daniel Radcliffe slightly being able to shed it, but it's been so long.
Yeah, you needed a long distance from that.
Yeah, but I agree with you, David. You still see McLovin, but I do think it was smart for him to take this role because it is very different from McLovin. It's not. He's not like snivelly in the same way. He is, but he is.
He is snivelly.
No, he is in the sense that that's how he sounds, but because he can't help that. But I'm just saying, like his vocal delivery is different from McLovin. It's not he has more confidence weirdly in this role, I feel like.
I don't know if you guys felt this way, but it seemed like the movie placed enough in there for you to kind of feel bad for Chris or his character. And it's like just with the mention of even the group of kids talking about like how, it must be kind of sad, you know, oh yeah, he's so rich. And it's like, no, but he's alone, you know, we should make friends with him. But he has that element of like wanting to appease his father, but his father's evil and he's not really allowed to be in contact with anyone else. So, but then there's still that sympathetic side that we see where he kind of feels bad once he realizes Kick-Ass isn't actually responsible. Yeah. So I think they sort of drop it a little bit at the end, but I liked how his character was a slightly more complex than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. Even if it was barely touched on.
By the way, it was kind of fun watching this and seeing which characters lined up to their Marvel or DC counterparts. I definitely think Chris DeMarco is supposed to be Harry Osborn in this.
D'Amico.
D'Amico, son of Green Goblin.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, and I'll just go down the list of my theories. One is obvious. Big Daddy, obviously Batman.
Yeah.
And then we have Hit Girl, who I think is Robin. And then we have Kick-Ass, who's Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's definitely
Spider-Man.
And they go even further in the sequel with like actually filling out the heroes. But I thought that it was interesting, this combination of DC and Marvel elements here, like parodies of not parodies exactly, but riffs off of these characters.
Which they had to skirt by some legality, I think, with being able to mention some of these because, like, I can see Marvel being a little weird about it.
Funny you say that. This is technically a Marvel property, yet it's like, so with DC, I think they have Dark Horse or something like that, like with V for Vendetta and Watchmen and all that. But those worlds should not meet, is the thing. Is like,
I think getting to say them though, and the only reason they were able to actually say like the name Batman in this is because it was in the comic. Yeah, and they're referencing it as a comic, not trying to say they're in the world.
Not in that world. They can't market those characters. Yeah.
So to use a Harry Potter term, this Kick-Ass it resides in the Diagon Alley of Marvel, where it's like, oh, we don't go there. So there was, I think, Marvel was breathing down the necks of the people making this movie, just like, you better not ever mention this or show this or do this because we don't want to be associated with that, even though they technically produced Kick-Ass.
Which is like, we did it, but like, don't tell anybody.
Exactly.
Also, they did some shot-for-shots based off of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man from the first movie. They actually like modeled some of the street shots and
there's that one scene where he's about to jump from building to building, which is very much that same thing.
They did a lot of shots.
Also, when he's in his back, I hesitate to say yard, but that framing of that shot and the buildings are almost exactly like Peter Parker's neighborhood.
Yep.
Yeah. When he's the front portion, like all the houses, how they're lined up exactly like Peter Parker.
It's the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But back to the villains. Mark Strong's one of those guys, and I mentioned this watching the movie, who should not have a American accent, yet, and it's not because like I don't think he can pull it off, because he actually as Irina, you stated, he pulls off the American accent here, but he is just such a British looking person that it just seems weird, but he does it. He's such a good performer that by the end of the movie, I was convinced.
He's got a subtle New York accent. Like he's pulling off not only an American accent, but a subtle New York accent, which I don't think I could do.
Yeah, and we talked about this. Like, I need to actually finally dig down and look into this, but how do people learn accents? Do they learn like the basic straight ahead accent first and then build on that? Or do they go straight into like, I'm going to learn the New York accent, you know?
Right.
Like, do you have to break down your own, learn the basic and then build the accent on top of that? Or
you typically have to deconstruct and at least recognize what your accent is.
Yeah. which sounds so hard to do. Like, we can all do our like stereotypical cliche make fun of accent, but to actually learn one, it sounds like it'd probably be incredibly difficult.
Really hard. I took
well,
an
also
accent.
if you're sorry, go ahead.
No, mine's stupid. You go.
I was just gonna say, like, as an actor, especially where you're having to kind of learn an accent to the point where it's more muscle memory. Otherwise, you're thinking too hard about the accent and you're not acting anymore.
Yeah,
like your mind is distracted by what you're saying. So I'm always impressed when an actor is able to speak in an accent that's not their own, but also act very well while doing it.
So do we like Mark Strong in this crime lord role here?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like a weird mix of doting father, but completely evil.
His eyes are so expressive. Like, sometimes the way he just looks at someone kind of makes me laugh because it's so intense. And his eyes are kind of large, too.
He is someone I could never have a conversation with in real life.
What do you mean?
No, he might be he might be the nicest person in the world, but just I'd be so nervous.
He's someone that's he looks intense, but every time I've seen him in an interview or behind the scenes, he just looks like a really fun guy.
Yeah, and he probably is. Yeah,
just kind of a happy looking person.
Aw.
I would just ask him to sing John Denver songs.
Does he do that in this, or is that a
no?
reference?
That's a reference.
Kingsman.
Ah, dang, I haven't seen that in a while.
I love your deep cuts, AJ.
That's a good. I love his performance of that song.
It's so good.
No, it's good. I just like I never would have just pulled that from my head. I'm impressed.
That's that's the thing that like humanizes him amongst all his like villain roles. That's like I really appreciate him as Merlin. So
yeah. I love that he has the occasional like good guy role that just I don't know. It just makes you keep. You're still on board with Mark Strong. Like you like him.
Is there another villain in a movie that is as amiable as Mark Strong's? Like where you like him but also recognize that he's evil? It's a rare occasion. I'm
sure there are like Loki. Like
okay,
I'm sure there are though. You know, there's a number of them.
There have been a couple, but I don't know.
But yeah, he's one of those guys you kind of like. You like him and you hate him. All right, so we have D'Amico. I got it.
There you go.
We have D'Amico D'Amico Jr., who is really trying to, fit in. And I should back up. We have Kick-Ass first coming onto the scene. He gets beat up and stabbed in his first.
Oh, we're still on that. Wow.
I'm gonna zip through this.
Okay.
Don't worry. I'm gonna zip through this. He gets stabbed, but he gets taken to the hospital. This is after his first like suit up, and he fights and he figures out, yep, I am not quite ready for this.
Mm-hmm.
So in the hospital, he gets like metal implants into his bones, and his nerve endings are like not fried off, but like he doesn't feel anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So he almost becomes in a sense, like a more realistic version of Wolverine in the sense that he can't like feel pain or
right.
Has this adamantium equivalent, like it's just metal, but it's supposed to like kind of
real.
That's the connection to Marvel again. So it actually gives him some, I don't know, slight heightened ability in a fight. But he starts there's another confrontation. He's trying to save Mr. Bitey, this cat that's gone missing. I love, by the way, if I ever get another cat and we have two cats, the second cat's going to be named Mr. Bitey. Even if it isn't a biter. I just love the name Mr.
Bitey.
Like, I was almost disappointed that the cat didn't bite him when he tries to rescue it. He just falls off. Like, I wanted it to bite him and then he falls off the thing when he's trying to rescue it. But then he has another fight. This time people start filming him. He becomes YouTube viral, which is funny in the early days of viral being a thing, just to see that it's just like, oh, how cute. That's what that used to be. It used to be this kind of cool thing. Now it's just anytime someone says the word viral, it's like, ugh, like gag.
It's corn.
Then Chris D'Amico sees that this kick-ass guy is getting famous. He's like, oh man, I want to be famous. I want to have friends. And
you're not wrong.
But he also like looks up to his dad and he's like, oh, I want to be more like my dad too. And he starts to lean more towards his dad, but he's also like, I could have the best of both worlds. At least that's what I'm taking about this. Like, I could be a superhero and also be like my dad. I don't think he's exactly angling towards being an actual bad guy yet, but he's like, oh, I could see a way to...
His interests align.
I think he's more like, I want to prove myself in a way.
Yeah.
And so he convinces his dad that he can rub shoulders with this kick-ass guy. And at this point, Kick-Ass has actually aligned himself with Hit Girl and Big Daddy. They helped him out of a situation where he was nearly killed. Sorry, I'm zipping through this.
Yeah.
But
you're good.
He's basically become the gay friend to Kate Demo?
I think it's Doma.
It's like a French
Just call her Kate.
Yeah, Kate. And she's had this boyfriend or past boyfriend she's complained about, so he barged in on his apartment and got in some trouble with them. It's a big moment. He tases the guy in the face and gets a few hits in, but then is ultimately subdued. And at the last moment, Hit Girl comes in and kills all the people. It's a cool scene.
Yeah.
By the way, what'd y'all think of that first like actual official action scene with Hit Girl? Like her doing her thing.
Oh, in that drug lord, whatever his name, the drug lord area. It gave me Kingsman vibes. That kind of reminds me of sort of that.
It wasn't a drug lord. They were just a couple junkies.
Yeah, but definitely not junkies. I think they sell drugs. I don't think they're drug lords, but yeah. Anyway,
dealers.
That's the word.
Well, they're part of his organization. They're pushers for the street level stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but the whole fighting scene reminded me a little bit of what was to come in Kingsman. It's sort of like you get your slow-mos, you get the really cool...
Yeah.
It's not choppy like you get in other ones, but you get to see some full action.
I like how a lot of her delivery of her lines is very Clint Eastwood. You know, like, do you feel lucky? Well, do ya? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because she's doing the squinting and then the
like
head turn from side to side while she talks.
Yeah, she's like trying to figure out who she is.
Yeah.
Like, what's my catchphrase?
Yeah,
you know, like, what's my thing? How do I look cool? That stuff's done really well, I feel like.
I think she's just great in this movie. I think she's perfect for this brand of film. And I this will be something we talk about later. I feel like her character could have blossomed into so much more. And I feel like it gets a little stunted along the way.
You're not teasing a future episode, are you?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
But yeah, so they save Kick-Ass and he becomes aligned with them. And now this loops back around to when I was talking about Chris and how he started to notice Kick-Ass and his dad, who had a bunch of his people killed by the people by Kick-Ass and company. Not Kick-Ass, but you know what I mean. Like it was the same, like those two groups finally met, and now the father, D'Amico, I'm just going to keep struggling.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
You can just call him Frank.
Frank, that's so generic, I can't remember it.
D'Amico
at least
D'Amico
at least has something to it. But D'Amico identifies the culprits as Big Daddy and Kick-Ass. He identifies it as Kick-Ass even though it was Hit Girl and Big Daddy that did the majority of the damage in this situation. So Chris D'Amico thinks that he can, get friendly with Kick-Ass and then get in with figuring out who was actually involved with all this. Turns out Chris actually kind of likes hanging out with Kick-Ass. It's the one moment you see a little bit of like, oh, maybe Chris could be like not so bad.
Yeah.
And even still up into the betrayal. Are we there yet in the story, by the way, with the whole betrayal part?
The last thing I brought up was it talks more about Katie. Red Mist contacts him again and tricks him into revealing Big Daddy and Hit Girl's location.
Yeah.
So it's on the cusp.
Okay. So at this point, what do y'all think about Chris D'Amico or Red Mist and Kick-Ass's relationship, like them meeting for the first time and their dynamic, I guess?
I'm going to pull in.
Well, that scene in the car was, pretty fun with the music. Like they don't know each other, but they're both kind of behind these mask things, and then they just start kind of grooving out, and they're, a little tentative at first. And it's like, oh, okay, I see you. And then they finally kind of, yeah, I like that scene.
I do too. I kind of like the weird sort of bonding where they're both kind of like, I don't know. It really does feel like a teenager thing to do where there's sort of like, oh yeah, like I'm into this cool stuff and whatever. And outside of the conversation, people looking in would think like, wow, these kids don't know anything. But kind of how they have equal grounding in that area where they're not really that expert at what they're doing. They're sort of playing the part. Yeah.
They're both posing as superheroes.
They both suck at being heroes.
But then they start vibing together. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, leading up to this point, we get a lot of funny dialogue. There's just so much good writing, I think, in the comedy, for me anyway. I don't know if it translates to everybody, but I don't know. The scene where Frank D'Amico is torturing or about to torture like their guy because they think that he, stole their drugs and lied about it and said that Batman intercepted or whatever. That whole conversation, I'm not saying it's Batman. Yeah. That was hilarious to me.
All the thugs talking. It's just funny stuff.
When they were trying, when Chris D'Amico tells his dad about his idea to be the Red Mist, and they're like, "What about we can kill this guy or somebody else?" Like, kill Tony, get Tony, F that guy, screw that guy, let's kill him.
He's a scumbag.
He's a scumbag. They're so funny to me. Also, all of the guys who work for Chris
they
D'Amico,
didn't kill him. It was more just. They were trying to set up Red Mist as someone who was crime fighting. So we don't
know if they killed him or not.
They framed Tony and made it look like Red Mist had Red Mist, this new hero,
responsible for it.
Tony
to legitimize him.
Yeah,
I know.
To then make Kick-Ass be interested,
but yeah, the whole process of going about it is very the fact that they're so cavalier about it is just humorous.
Yeah. I love that both heroes are just trying to fake it to make it in a way. Like Kick-Ass has actually seen some action, but he's not been successful in any way whatsoever. But they both have this just followings.
Well, he's been moderately.
He had that one fight in front of the diner.
Well, it reminds you of influencers today, doesn't it?
The aspect I like about it is they both regard each other as someone that's more intense or superior than the other, and so they're trying to pretend like they are too.
Yeah, but they're also
they're both
for
the
validation.
Same. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I like that dynamic, and that's something I wish I didn't really like the direction it ends up going, but by the end of the movie, but I wish there was a little more with Chris's character where he has more conflict of interest.
Yeah, I also wish they had been buddies for longer before it happened, because then that stab in the back would have felt much more.
It would have, for sure.
I don't know, impactful. Let's also, before we say goodbye to Big Daddy, let's talk about his big action scene and just some closing thoughts on Nicolas Cage. So we see that they get the camera footage from the teddy bear, or are we there yet? Yeah, we're there yet. We're there. But
nanny cam.
Yeah, they recover the camera, or Chris D'Amico planted this camera in this warehouse to try and capture who was responsible, thinking it would be Kick-Ass, and it turned out to be Big Daddy, and he's just taking out all of their thugs. And I'll be the first to say I like this action sequence, but I think there's too much cutting and too much editing and zooming out. Did y'all enjoy it? I mean, they recycle that music from 28 Days Later. Yeah. It is the same composer.
It's much needed, like a little bit more. It turns the volume up a notch and more intensity in the professionalism of the fighting combat and stuff, where we have the amateur hour before trying to learn the ropes, and then seeing the master at work.
Seeing a real person do the
left a little bit to be desired, but it was much needed to see in overall in the movie.
Like there's actually competent heroes out there that can really, I don't know, do a number.
Right.
And just Nicolas Cage, is there anything else y'all wanted to talk about with him and his I don't know, his interactions with Kick-Ass or his interactions with Hit Girl?
This is where we get to see him as Big Daddy, which we've talked about him more as a father figure, but as Big Daddy being the Batman-esque figure, specifically Nicolas Cage went for a Adam West Batman style. So all the dialogue style and the way he talks is very Adam West, which adds to the humor.
It's so good and so intentional too. Like it's just every time those awkward pauses between words and just like kind of speaking a little too loud. For it was just so good.
They should call him more like ass kick.
Yeah.
And then that awkward laugh.
All right. David, do you want to go ahead and finish out that story?
Yeah. At one of Big Daddy's safe houses, Red Mist shoots Hit Girl out of a window, and Frank's men capture Big Daddy and Kick-Ass. Frank intends to have his thugs torture and execute his captives in a live internet broadcast. While Kick-Ass and Big Daddy are being beaten by Frank's gangsters, Hit Girl, having survived the shooting, storms the hideout and kills all of the gangsters. During the fight, one thug sets Big Daddy on fire. Big Daddy and Mindy say a tearful farewell before he dies of his burns. Kick-Ass and Hit Girl resolve to defeat Frank D'Amico once and for all. Hit Girl infiltrates Frank's headquarters and kills numerous guards and henchmen before running out of bullets. When Hit Girl is cornered by the thugs, Kick-Ass arrives on a jetpack fitted with miniguns and kills the remaining thugs. Kick-Ass and Hit Girl then take on Frank and Red Mist. Kick-Ass fights Red Mist, which results in them knocking each other out. Frank overpowers an exhausted Hit Girl. Before he can kill her, Kick-Ass regains consciousness and blasts Frank out of a window with a bazooka, killing him. No duh. Red Mist then regains consciousness, grabs his father's samurai sword, and pursues Kick-Ass in order to continue in the fight just in time to see Kick-Ass and Hit Girl fly away on one jetpack. Dave and Mindy retire from crime fighting. Marcus becomes Mindy's guardian, and she enrolls in Dave's school. Meanwhile, Chris sits in his father's office, dressed in an upgraded suit, preparing to seek revenge on Kick-Ass for killing his father. Facing the camera, he says, as a great man once said, "Wait till they get a load of me," before firing a gun at the screen.
So let's talk about the crazy scene where Kick-Ass, Big Daddy are captured, and what is meant to be this big reveal of, oh, Kick-Ass is going to show his face, turns out to be basically one of those terrorist gang videos where they start to murder people on live television.
Wasn't that a fun time?
Yeah, so they're like midway through their execution. Execution, and lights go off. We see the night vision for Hit Girl come on, and it's this big action sequence. Unfortunately, they're able to light the fuse, or not the fuse, but light the gasoline that leads up to Big Daddy, and he is set aflame as the action ensues. Ultimately, she's able to dispatch all the bad guys, but it's too late for Big Daddy, who's still kind of alive, but is able to get a few last words in, and then he perishes, but Kick-Ass is ultimately saved. What did y'all think about the big turning point in this movie? I think this is the biggest moment in the film that kind of drives the plot forward.
I think it's fun.
It's fun, but I think it would have been more fun if we still
I don't think fun's the right word.
I thought it was
Daddy
fun.
dying, so much fun.
This was not a fun
Big Daddy should have been. Big Daddy should have lived. I don't care.
I mean, I would have liked if he lived as well, but I will say, they took a scene and they made it both sad and comical at the same time.
They did,
and that's just funny to me.
That's this movie.
Imagine a Kick-Ass offshoot where it's just Big Daddy and Hit Girl, and you can forget about.
And that movie can exist still.
It can't, because they only became costumed afterwards.
No, they've been costumed.
So.
You get the sense that they've been doing this a few times. I do.
Maybe.
Anyway, Irina?
Yeah, I actually liked that fight sequence, and you do feel a little sad that Big Daddy is dead. Although Nicolas Cage's performance kind of cuts through that that pain a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're like, all right, well, it's still fun.
He's so
in a weird
likable
way.
in this movie.
We get the famous lines such as, "Take cover, child."
Take cover, child.
And was it like, "Move to kryptonite"?
Is that what he actually said?
Yes,
Yeah.
I looked it up.
Okay. He looked it up.
Yeah, it's their kind of set pieces or, routines that I do like him calling out guidance for her.
Yeah, me too.
And I see the storytelling necessity of Big Daddy dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy the way this was shot, the action, between the muzzle flashes and her in the shadows and taking down the guys is just, that's great. I kind of, the way that Big Daddy died and, kind of catching on fire, it's like, man, I know he would definitely have some kind of like, as Batman would, preparation, like his suit would have some kind of fire retardant abilities in it. And he's, seems like he's like perfect, well, not, perfectly healthy enough. Obviously fire's going to kill you at that level, but it seems like he has enough awareness and consciousness to like have this conversation with her, and then he just is gone. So that I don't know, lack of finesse and how he passed was a little off-putting, and it kind of stretched that. I want them, this being a real world, quote unquote hero movie. I kind of wished that they had a little bit more realism in that. So
yeah,
I don't know. That was just me.
I would have. Here I am again. I would have made this happen later.
I thought you were going to say I would have made this 3 movies.
like not later in this movie.
I get where you're coming from. You need more impact of his death.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
supposed to be more impactful.
Yeah, like I would have wanted. Here's what I want: this movie to exist, then an in-between movie between this one and the second one that we see later.
Can we just cut out the second one?
And then, well, okay, yeah, but like it exists, so we can't forget it. And then have the second one happen. And in the middle, maybe the second movie, you develop a lot more of Big Daddy and Hit Girl, and you get to know them even more. Maybe it's even more focused on them.
No, you just want everything to be like a TV show.
No, and not, I'm saying 3 movies.
3 movies.
That's it. That's all he's asking for.
Look, my viewing on this is that it's half a comedy. They're playing fast and loose. There's going to be a death that adds some levity to it. They don't know if they're getting a second shot at this thing.
Yeah, no, I understand why.
They're laying it all on the table, and this is what it is. I am personally okay with this death. If I'm going to compromise with you, Noah, I would say I wish it happened a little later in the movie.
It does happen at the end of the movie.
I think it's important that something like this happens to drive the emotional, like... The counter argument, the counter argument I have to you with making one movie 3 movies all the time is that
it's not 1, 3, it's 2. And
no,
3.
I know, but it diminishes the value of a single movie giving you all the goods.
Well, don't write a single movie where you have to fill in the blanks.
But we are adequately filling in the. I think this movie does enough. Gives you enough context clues to fill in those blanks, whereas other movies don't. Like, I think that all the pieces are here. It's a pretty simple movie. I know what it's trying to do.
Okay. Here's the thing: you have to contextualize things, and that okay, I'm fine with doing that in some circumstances, but there's a lot of unwritten story that you don't see, and I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I think you're just sad to see the character go.
The point is that I'm not sad, but I would love to have seen more of him.
Well, yeah, it gets complicated.
You want to be sad.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what happens with movies that juggle a lot of people.
Because I really
large casts require either multiple movies or long movies to break them down properly.
I would argue that these people aren't too many, though. Yeah. I think for me, a lot got lost when they tried to carry the romance narrative a little too much, and that dug into too much of a comedy of the time, and it didn't really feel like it had its place here. Like,
too much of this Kate stuff.
Well, they wanted that girl next door.
They're doing the Spider-Man
Peter Parker thing.
The thing is, she's a little too bland to be that, and not very realistic in this situation.
She is acting out of like a different movie.
Hey, that is Ted Mosby's daughter.
Whoa.
So
she's. First she's superficial and then she's not. It's just not the same character, but it's also you're wanting Dave to succeed and be happy for him, but is this the best thing for him? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a little bit mixed messaging.
It is.
In that regard.
I think the thing that throws me off is that he suddenly, now that he has a girlfriend, he doesn't really care about crime fighting so much, and it felt like in the beginning the messaging was he was kind of girl crazy, but then he started forgetting about girls when he was focused on this project he had for himself,
But then
and so you
realized
start seeing some growth in him, though. Like he sucked at it, but he still went back to it.
So.
Yeah, exactly. But I think there's like they're trying to make her too much of the archetype girlfriend, and it's like that's not what we need right now. What I needed was a little more interaction with Big Daddy and Hit Girl and Kick-Ass. Like I needed a little more meetups between these characters that are actually going to be part of the end of this movie.
Because she really almost never factors into
she doesn't really
stuff. Yeah.
I'm curious how much of that stems from the original comic.
Yeah.
Not knowing the story, but I'm sure that it's a safe assumption to say that there was, more graphic or like just the romantic side, the physical, like,
right.
For something that's criticized as being like just going into too much detail. I'm sure that probably came in at some point.
Yeah,
so
probably.
Seems like this movie tried to, kind of hit that nail on the head as well.
Yeah.
Trying to touch all the bases, I guess.
Right.
Just to touch off this moment where Big Daddy dies, I really like the way Hit Girl comes up to him and quickly like covers him in the blanket. Like I thought it was just I don't know, it was like the performance
kind of the
was so good.
Embrace that she
the
has.
Embrace, just like I'm covering you in this blanket, and it's
I'm protecting you.
Yeah, it was so, I don't know, sweet in a weird
think
way.
There was something about it that it's almost like she knows he's not going to survive that,
Yeah.
where usually you have a character that's like, no, you're fine, we'll get you out of here and blah blah blah, but she's like, yeah, it's too late for him.
We've
kind of a thing.
this.
Yeah.
And as far as the emotional weight of the scene, and maybe I'm just misreading what their intentions were, or maybe they were trying to make it really emotional. I don't think we were supposed to care all that much about his death.
No, it's a mix. It's trying to straddle the line.
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's supposed to be more funny than it is.
No, David,
touching.
you are straight up wrong.
No, I don't think they built this. I agree with because they didn't try to build this character. He's supposed to be goofy.
The intention is to do both. This is the big moment that is supposed to make you really angry at the villain. Like, you killed one of ours.
I mean, I was.
Because you see, that's what I'm saying. The main feeling you get from this is, oh, now I kind of feel rage, even though what Nicolas Cage's performance was kind of like pouring sugar on the situation. Like, just because you're watching him scream, and in a way he's like not enjoying it, but it's like, oh, I prepared for this. Like, it's
supposed to be Uncle Ben's death. This is kind of a consequence of Kick-Ass, doing, just kind of playing around, messing around, not taking things as seriously. He did kind of drop the whole hero thing once he got involved with, the girl and stuff. And then he tries to have his cake and eat it too. And so this is a consequence of that.
Yeah.
Well, it also feels like, because of the nature of the style of film they're going for, which is more of a Deadpool style, funny comedy superhero movie, it makes it really hard to create weight that matters.
Yeah, but this is still the serious moment of the movie.
I know. I'm not saying it's not trying to be serious. It's just that it'll never have an actual big impact emotionally.
But I
guess I don't receive it as that comedical.
Comedic, I thought it was hilarious.
I mean, it is funny, but I don't think it's going
the way he screams is funny, but that's about it.
Well, imagine this, David.
It's lighthearted.
Imagine any other actor playing his role and having to yell out directions to his daughter while being set afire on a chair.
Like Mark Wahlberg or Daniel Craig?
So I think it's mostly the Nicolas Cage factor that makes it comedic. I still felt sad that he was dying, but imagining another actor playing that role and dying in this scene, it would definitely feel like it was much more serious.
Yeah, and I still think the scene, even though Nicolas Cage is funny just because it's Nicolas Cage. It's still horrific.
Yeah.
Like, it's framed in a horrific way.
Yeah.
Like, you're watching him burn to death.
Okay.
Like, it's...
And the torture, it's brutal. I mean, just the way they're getting beat up and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I guess in the same way, it has the emotional impact that I felt watching Deadpool 2, watching his girlfriend, or was it his wife, get killed. Like,
which was also, while it was humorous, it was also a weighty moment.
Did not have that much weight to me. Well,
Yeah.
I'm heavily impacted by a lot of other movies, as you know, Reese. I am emotionally in touch with people being tortured, but whenever it's filmed in a more comedic style and it's a very lighthearted movie, it's hard for me to care. Like,
For one,
deeply.
I don't know. She literally becomes dead, so it's got some kind of impact.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're not going to see quite eye to eye on this, and that's
well,
fine.
it's interesting to see that perspective of it.
Yeah,
that, you know,
it is.
Yeah.
It's got those
Oh,
facets
thanks.
to the movie.
All right. Moving on. So this really... Hit Girl is disillusioned, but also filled with rage.
She's also in shock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in shock.
She goes revenge mode.
I'm pretty sure Kick-Ass decides maybe I'm not cut out for this.
I think his is almost like, hey, we need to go home. You need to recover from this. A lot has happened. But she's like,
Yeah.
no, I need to finish this now, kind
Yeah.
of a thing.
And she basically approaches him at some point and is like, I need you. We're doing this. I'm not doing this by myself.
I think it was like he was going to take her back home with him because she doesn't have her father with her anymore, but instead she starts packing ammo and guns and stuff. And so she convinces him to come along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Riffing off of the whole Uncle Ben connection, I think this is a diverging point of two perspectives on responsibility. You know, he's in this world where, he's obviously raised in a more traditional household than she was. So his responsible, reaction is like, okay, we got to just get out. You know, you come home with us, we'll, kind of take care of you and whatever, go from there. Her, take on responsibility is, no, there's a responsibility to fix this and, take vengeance, make this right. And, do justice kind of thing. So there's some stuff to unpack there, and her weight as a character that she's got, there's a lot of depth to, and it goes into a little bit in the second movie of, how her childhood was robbed and stuff.
Right.
But she's kind of an interesting character, more than just, it's this kind of little young person that's, 4 foot high, throwing butterfly knives around and stuff, or balisongs, excuse me.
Yeah, it's like the most the worst. She was raised in the worst and best way at the same time.
Best for what she's doing, worst if she wants to ever lead a normal life.
Yeah. But we have our final moment, I'm just going to go to the third act here. They both team up and they decide to take on the D'Amico Senior and Junior and all their cronies in their big ol' penthouse. Let's just call it a penthouse. Have a big shootout. This is when Hit Girl really gets to have an awesome action sequence. I was like, this part was the coolest part for me, with at least in terms of all the Hit Girl action sequences, seeing her take out all these people.
Kind of John Wick-esque.
Yeah, the way she uses that chain or whip or whatever and uses it to wrap around the gun and then pull it towards the guy's head and have him shoot himself in the head. I don't think that'd be possible, but it was still cool to look at. And then again, this is where I kind of get those Edgar Wright feelings, but Matthew Vaughn really knows how to do a good needle drop with a good song at the right point. Just
Cue
really
Joan
just hit
Jett.
it home. Yeah, cue Joan Jett. Just the right amount of slow-mo, not too much, not too Zack Snyder-y. Get enough quick actual real-time action. Feels tactile, doesn't feel CGI or messed with, which is probably because it wasn't, because this was a kind of self-funded thing. Not a lot of CGI work involved, although it is here and there. What did y'all think about this final moment? And I guess just before we get to the actual dispatching of Mark Strong.
I liked it. I think the only thing bothering me is how quickly Chris is just on board with being oh, okay, I guess I'm like
Evil.
the villain's son now, and I'm fine watching people getting tortured or whatever.
Yeah, it kind of seems
That
not
felt a
quite
little
right.
rushed to me. Like,
He's
I
I'm
don't
totally evil now.
I don't mind him being pitted as the, Harry Osborn, where you killed my father, prepare to die kind of stuff. But
I'm pretty sure that was the sixth. No, the
yeah, it is. It's a Princess Bride reference, but it's just kind of like they created something interesting with him and then dropped it.
And he was acting disturbed by his dad enjoying.
Yeah, exactly. He even tried to protect Kick-Ass
yeah.
to some degree, and I think it's like that craving camaraderie or someone that's like on his level, but I don't know. It felt like they kind of started something and then just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, they could have had something good.
could have had something there.
So both Kick-Ass and Red Mist go at it. They're both fairly incompetent fighters. They knock each other out. Kind of an annoying fight scene where... And here's a problem I have a little bit with this movie. Kick-Ass barely gets any better in this movie at all.
Yeah.
At all.
I kind of like that.
I like it, but I also... I like it that it's... Okay, here's what I like that it's different from other movies, but I don't know if it's different in the right way. Like, I wanted to see some actual competent fighting from this guy. I will say he gets one moment in this movie. One. Count them. Where it's like, okay, you actually helped out.
Yep.
In that scene.
And that's that first one.
Not
the first one, the second one.
jetpack
It's
scene.
the jetpack scene.
Oh, I thought it was just him, when he went viral.
No, he didn't.
But he didn't
got
make a
beat
bigger
up
impact.
still, like-
yeah.
He did, but he did do a good thing and he saved a guy.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, I'll be generous. 2 moments.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see the time when he gets that win over those thugs, and he had help, I think. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't get the sense that he progressed at all in his ability from that to the final scene. Like, he's just like, they hit each other on the head. Like, Red Mist has not seen barely any action, and yet Kick-Ass can't take this guy out? Come on.
No, he should have been able to take Red Mist
Yeah, the
easily.
only thing he gets is he wakes up a little before him, which means I guess Red Mist hit him like slightly less hard on the head than he hit him. But
Well, Chris, he, grew up wealthy and well-to-do, and so his father he didn't keep him like as a direct successor in learning the family business, but it seemed like, they had like training.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever.
He did
He had
professional
access to,
training.
like kind of a dojo and stuff. So
Yeah, maybe.
there's that aspect. And, I'm a little bit with David on this, where part of the point of, him being Kick-Ass, he's not good at combat. And it's kind of the irony of his name is just more for cool and flash points and style points than actual combat, and more like ass kick, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But I do want, like, I was craving more like actual great choreography in it. Hit Girl definitely carried the weight in that.
Yeah.
For Kick-Ass being the protagonist, I wanted to see more from it. At the same time as from a realism standpoint. Well, see, I guess I'm with you there too, because that's where this movie can't pick. It has its cake and eats it too. Where is it real, or is it just over the top, silly, bazookas and jetpacks?
Right.
Yeah, I think I was reading something. I don't know if it was Mark Millar, but he was involved in the making of this movie, where he's like, the movie starts off a little more realistic, but with that comedic bent, but it becomes more cartoony as it goes. And I think their hope was that you would be along for the ride as it gets more and more heightened. Like, it would hook you, and then you wouldn't care that it got more and more, like, kind of outrageous as it went.
Raising my hand.
Yeah.
I do kind of agree with you about about what you were saying earlier on with Kick-Ass, in that I would like to see some improvement. Not like, an overnight, I could now bust a move on these guys, but more like, he learned one move.
But for
Or
what
like-
purpose? Like, I don't think there's the weight of the movie isn't supposed to be about him getting better. And if he does, it
the
does
purpose
nothing.
is why would Hit Girl
Character
want him?
progression.
Why would Hit Girl want
It's
him to
not
help if
progression,
he's
though.
not good at anything?
Because
does
he's
help.
somebody who's trying and cares. That's why
No,
both
she
her
doesn't
and-
care about that. All she cares about at this point in the story is like, yeah, she's kind of endeared to him, but also she is about competency. And
she
being
brought her and Big Daddy brought it up earlier when he couldn't do anything, and he's like, no, like he's a guy who's trying and he's doing something.
He's got potential.
Yeah,
so
got
then
potential.
that potential should be slightly realized.
But there's been no time. It's all been a very
exactly
quick session.
one move. He could learn one freaking move.
yeah, give him like a good
He
karate
did.
chop.
He hit him with a baton. He learned accuracy, Noah. That is his
Give
move.
him one like good karate chop or like a pinch the neck move. Like I don't know.
It's like what I want to see
You're
him
in this power of self-respect.
Here's
Pilgrim.
here's what they could do, and it would be such an easy thing to show his slight amount of growth, but like competent growth.
Mm-hmm.
Him being able to dodge hits a little bit better.
Yeah, stop getting your ass beat.
Yeah.
like just constant. Like that. He is a human punching bag.
Yeah. Or and they actually do this in the second one a little bit, but him also slightly like putting on a little bit more protective gear.
Yeah.
Those two things could be easily done within this movie.
They could have. I do think for me personally, I like the fact that he doesn't get better and that he does get his ass kicked. I think that it is endearing to the character and the message of the overall story.
Well,
It just goes against like having a character arc. Like
Yeah.
like just
It's
where
not
are
about
you
him,
from?
though.
Where
it is.
It's
the
what's
name is
movie-
Kick-Ass.
What's the movie called?
Well, I know it's called Kick-Ass, but I don't think just because it's called Kick-Ass
What does he
is
learn at the like? What's progressed?
that you
from-
don't actually have to be a superhero to be a superhero.
Except
Like you can,
it ends up
you
that
can
he
make-
does have to be.
No,
a superhero to be one.
he made a difference without being a superhero. He still got his ass kicked, and he helped
Is
save
that why
the day.
why he's still carrying on the superhero name in the second one and just continuing to be a quote unquote superhero?
Well, in the second movie, it's
That's a
completely
disingenuous argument. You can't
Yes.
pull up the sequel that necessarily or doesn't necessarily go along with the intent of the first one.
exactly.
It was always intended though to continue.
Yeah.
Well, I
You're
think the
right.
point is the message of this was not that. In the second movie, it is, and that's why it makes sense in the second movie.
And
I-
we'll talk about that next
I
time.
fundamentally disagree, but
I think the point is that it's a superhero movie, and it would not be. It's not a good enough subversion of expectations to make him not learn something.
yeah,
Like
the fact that he knows how to fly a jetpack but can't like have a good hand on
there
him.
was an instruction manual.
There was. He read the instruction manual. That was his learning
That
so,
curve.
if
was
he
his
can learn
learning
so
moment.
quickly, why can he still not fight?
Because physical hand-to-hand combat is very different than flying a jetpack.
No, but dodging's not that.
All right, all right,
It's all right. All right.
We're gonna just keep
we
arguing.
digress.
We're circling,
We
sorry.
digress.
But Kick-Ass does finally get a moment with his jetpack. He kills some thugs as Hit Girl's nearly like she's about to die after killing 50 guys. She's finally up against the wall when the guy pulls a rocket launcher on her, which is that bazooka bit was really funny. I
Yeah.
felt like as like when it's first introduced and Mark Strong's like, yeah, it's fine.
I still love the line after they think that Hit Girl was taken care of. And he's like, "Huh, that was a strange sounding bazooka." You know, it was just like,
It was obviously
it was obviously
machine gun
rapid fire.
Yeah, good dumb lines and acknowledgement of this being dumb, and it's just funny. So then we get our final fight. D'Amico.
Frank D'Amico.
Yep, you got it.
Fighting Hit Girl, and for whatever reason, like this guy's like just a badass fighter and can take her down pretty easily.
It did kind of seed that in the beginning. He has his own room where he practices whatever martial arts he was learning. I don't know.
But
He
still,
was also focusing on a stationary object, just standing still, punching.
Yeah,
it.
but that was more of a discipline thing. It
Yeah,
looked like
maybe.
it was more of a focused kind of like this is the exact distance from the
Yeah, you
object.
might-
I don't
you're
know
probably right.
enough about martial arts or what they do, but it seemed more like a disciplinary thing.
Yeah. But after Red Mist and Kick-Ass's fight, Kick-Ass wakes up before Red Mist can, grabs the rocket launcher, shoots Frank D'Amico out the window, and he blows up midair, thus saving Hit Girl. and then we have our kind of moment at the end with stuff happening.
Wow.
What happens?
So after this, they go home. Then Hit Girl has a new dad, which is her Big Daddy's ex or like former cop buddy. So she goes to school with Kick-Ass.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the end of the movie. What did y'all think of the end?
I kind of like the ending. I'm interested in what would happen next, pretending that I haven't seen what happened next.
Yeah.
I agree fully.
I'm with that as well. I think it's a really fun
I found D'Amico's death pretty satisfying. Like a very unique one and
very satisfying death.
Quite comic book like too.
It's almost like a Looney Tunes kind of
style.
Yeah,
it is a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is why the weight of anything in this seems funny to me because, and now that you bring that up, the whole progression of it starting more real and getting more and more comic booky, I think my brain retained like the ending very jokey comic booky style and then inserted that throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Upon like thinking back on all the scenes.
Yeah, it gets more comic booky as it goes.
Comic booky.
Yeah, and one thing, earlier I was just kind of joking about it, but one thing I do really like is, in fact, the colors. And the reason why the colors are nice, right?
Very distinctive.
It's very distinctive, just like a comic book.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like a comic book. They're like, oh, look at these contrasting things.
The villain's in red and our heroes in blue.
Yeah, very clearly
Green.
defined. And purple
it's a teal.
as well.
It's
Purple.
a teal. Right.
AJ,
exactly.
any final thoughts on the story?
No, I think it was a good ending. You know, Hit Girl is still involved and kind of gets this resolution, and she, kind of enters society, so to speak, with a responsible adult kind of looking out for her, as well as, you took out the big boss, and I feel like people learned some lessons along the way. The road getting there was maybe not as clear, but I feel like something was learned by the end.
Yeah.
So that's good.
All right. With that said, let's close out the story portion of this podcast. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other end, we'll get into our brief reviews with numbered scores, talk about what critics thought, get some box office, and then close out with a little bit of franchise talk. So we'll see you then. Welcome back. Let's talk Kick-Ass. David, you got our scores in a bowl there. You want to pull them at random?
It's a ceramic bowl.
Nice.
All right, first up, Irina with an 8.
Yeah. I think this movie is pretty successful in what it aims to do. And actually, I liked it better than I thought I would. So that might be part of the reason I'm giving it a higher score. I like the balance of comedy and sort of dark humor just by the events that are presented. I think where it fails for me is, I had already mentioned before, the whole girlfriend arc. I don't mind it being there, but it felt like there were some unnecessary moments where I just really didn't like the crowd that Dave was with. And honestly, everyone outside of your core characters is kind of bland when you really look at them, or just sort of annoying. But I guess that's kind of the point, is that this world is sort of full of people who are kind of just desensitized and accept what happens around them. And I think that's what the charm with Dave is for me, is while he is like a simple teen, it's sort of this realization that people should care about what's happening. And I feel like I could do something, even though he really doesn't have any skills other than just putting himself out there. So I think there's a charm in the story just from that standpoint. And I feel like it could have grown into something a little more. My other issue I have with this is the Chris character, the villain's son, is I liked where it was going with him, but it just sort of drops the ball and kind of steers him a little too quickly into the, oh yeah, I'm a villain now or whatever. I'm okay with it going that direction, but if you're going to plant the seed of doubt in the character where he's like not sure which side he should land on, don't just make him roll over within a couple seconds and be like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm like my dad now, you know, I'm evil.
Yeah.
So I love the energy. I would definitely watch this again. I think it's a good film overall. There's a little bit about it that's kind of indulgent in a way where it doesn't need to be. It's just some trimming around the edges here and there, and I think it would be a pretty good one.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Reese with an 8.
Yeah. Oh, man. Do I want to drop it? I don't know. I'll talk it through. I gave this movie an 8. I think Kick-Ass is... It's trying to be two things, and it's doing both of those things pretty competently, but not quite at the level it could do it if it decided to just pick a lane. If that makes sense. It's trying to be funny and subversive, but also trying to be like a genuine superhero story with emotional stakes. And I think while some of that is peanut butter and jelly going together really nicely, in another sense, it's conflicting. It like sometimes
oil and water.
Yeah, oil and
Stole
water.
my food analogy.
Sorry. Yeah, sometimes it
No,
goes. Sometimes it goes together really, really well. I'd say for 60% of the time it goes together really well. But there's other times where it's like, how am I supposed to feel in this moment? We had a big argument over the Nicolas Cage death scene or the Big Daddy death scene. David took it as almost more comedic. I took it as like, oh, it's trying to be emotional, but trying to lighten the load a little bit by his performance just being like so over the top as he's dying. And I think that's a problem that we had that disagreement because I don't think the movie's really selling you on what it's trying to convey properly. Like, it's just like, what are you trying to do here, movie? Like, am I supposed to feel like really sad this is happening, or am I supposed to laugh? Or like, you just kind of end up a little confused. But other than that, though, I think the movie does a good job of balancing the two tones. It's just when it really comes down to it and it has to have a big moment, it's like a deer in headlights and doesn't know which way to run, and it just ends up getting hit by the car. But
like Kick-Ass.
Yeah. But I do find this movie to be very entertaining. I really like all of the performances. Aaron Taylor Johnson is I think putting in a good performance here is like the grounding, just the kind of your typical everyday guy type of character who's trying to survive in this really hostile world. And then Chloe Grace Moretz and Nicolas Cage have adapted to this world and know how to crime fight, and they're really good at doing what they do, and their dynamic is perfect, and I love it. And I think it's like kind of the defining quality of this movie is their thing. So once Big Daddy actually leaves the movie, it's kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Christopher Mintz-Plasse is really good as well. I don't want to say really good. He's good. Playing against type here as the Red Mist. He could have used a little more development. Overall, I think this is a good proof of concept for what Matthew Vaughn would go on to do later and in a better way. Kick-Ass is great, but I don't think it's like a fully formed, perfect opus of an idea. It's just, it's got some, it's a rough diamond that needs to, I'm kind of playing off of AJ's energy here using all these analogies, but it's a rough diamond that just needs to be, I don't know, chiseled a little bit more, sanded off a little bit more. It's got some rough edges, and it doesn't quite, hey,
polished.
It is Kick-Ass himself. He hasn't quite figured out his identity, but he's getting there.
He's getting there.
I think I'm going to drop it to 7.5, but it's still good. Still good.
Don't worry, I'll balance it out.
All right, that's fine.
And by that, I'm going to keep my score, but I guess we'll see if I'm up next. Oh, dang it, I'm not up next. AJ's up next with a 6.5.
Yeah, so I'm kind of giving this movie I'm trying to be on the more critical side because I do enjoy this movie quite a bit more than that score would reflect. It's fun for sure. And I think a lot of the spirit of this movie comes from Hit Girl and Chloe Grace Moritz's performance, and she kind of steals the show. And we've talked, Reese kind of said everything I wanted to say, and I agree completely. So I'm maybe just balancing the fun factor a little bit less, or having less weight to that over. I really wanted to have, I mean, they had opportunities to do so on the character development, and really almost, I mean, there's not a lot of messaging going on in this movie, and there's a lot of opportunity to do so. And what I mean by that is, you know, that's goes hand in hand with character development and kind of like a human condition kind of thing, or where, like a coming of age kind of thing as well. Like, what is your place in society? What is your responsibility as a citizen, or, you know, just doing good, and, you know, what is too far in justice and all this stuff. Like, there's a lot of things that can be broached, a lot of subjects that can be broached with this and also have fun with it. And so I think, unfortunately, they just like that, you know, mishmash of, we have the Dave suddenly deciding to be a hero and, you know, ordering his package, his suit on Amazon, and it showing up overnight, and suddenly he's out walking the streets. Like, we don't see that gradual process. We don't see the wheels turning in his head. Same thing with the other side of it with Chris, D'Amico, Red Mist. You know, we see these bright spots of hope for him to kind of break out from under his father's shadow and kind of lean on the good side and have this friendship and camaraderie with Dave. And there's more character growth and development that could be explored there. But no, he just, once his dad's dead, he's the big bad now. And we'll see, even they really lean into that in the second movie. But that's unfortunate. And there's just that gap. You know, the peanut butter and the jelly meet, but they're not matched somehow. You know, there's a lot of good in both, but there still needs to be an interface between the silliness and the real world.
It's like that peanut butter and jelly that they put into one, like, a container.
Crustable.
Yeah, they put it all together, right?
So it's overly processed just for the digestibility of it.
Exactly.
I mean, I have fun with this movie. I really do have fun with this movie. And maybe my criticisms of are because there is so much potential for it. And I have no awareness of the source material, so that may be good or bad. But I'm harder on it because I wanted more, you know, substance along with the fun. So,
yeah.
But I still will put this movie on and watch it any day. And performance-wise, like, I think all of the cast do great, all across the board. So I think there's maybe a bit more just opportunity on the writing side and a little bit editing. So, yeah.
All right.
6.5.
Next up, Noah with a 7.
Nice.
Yeah. For me, it's kind of similar to Reese and AJ. But I do find it to be an entertaining movie, but it's also like you said, it's picking a lane could be a problem for me. That's less bad, just because, you know, I think that is part of its identity, the fact that it's kind of you know, scattered, but it doesn't really ever ascend to a level for me that makes me think, oh yeah, I love this movie. You know, they don't have enough of the emotionality. They don't have enough like of the humor. They do have enough humor, but more what I mean is if they're going to go that direction, go that direction. I don't know. It's just that what it is uniquely it, but it's not good enough in the ways that it's trying to be good. Does that make sense? I don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm. It's hard to kind of explain where my head is at, but it is fun, nonetheless. But not good enough to be 8 for me.
Not good enough.
Yeah, I don't think any of us will argue with this movie.
Yeah.
Movies being fun.
It's
fun.
like not bad, but it's not stupendous.
It
either.
doesn't go to the levels you wanted it to. That's fine.
Yeah, like I wanted more emotionality with the death of Big Daddy, but at the same time, his end was very fitting for him. I guess you just need more time with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like this, I think if they had kept some of the characters, went over to the second movie and continued that story without having the deaths, and then maybe do the deaths at that point, it would have been way more effective. But they didn't do that.
Yeah.
It's a good ride, though, along the way.
All right. Well, I guess I'm last. David with an 8.5.
Wow. You liked it.
I did. And I did a quick gut reaction, and I was somewhere in the 8 to 8.5 range, and I was like, you know what? I really did enjoy this movie. I'm just going to give it that extra bump. And I had a feeling I'd be on the high end, so I was like, it'll balance out a little bit along the way, which it did. And gosh, where to begin? This movie does try to be two different movies, I think.
Yeah.
And you got to either be on board with it or not, because the stakes aren't going to get as high as you may want them to in the beginning. And you just got to be ready for that. It's like they're trying to be Spider-Man in an emotional impact, but also going along the comedic lines of Deadpool.
David, not to correct you, but the stakes are just as high. It's the tone.
That's what
different.
I'm saying. The tone comes from the fact that they're trying to tell a Spider-Man movie with the tone of a Deadpool movie.
Yeah.
And you're never going to quite reach that emotional tone of Spider-Man if you're trying to undercut it with comedy.
I agree.
And Marvel does this a lot with some of their movies. Not all of them, but if you go back to Spider-Man, at least the Sam Raimi ones, there is more emotional impact because they don't try to undercut it with comedy.
It's so good.
And so we were comparing it to, Big Daddy's death to Uncle Ben. There was zero way for them in the tone of this movie to make that an impactful scene. And when you add on top of that it's Nicolas Cage and one of the last lines of his death is a comedic line, like what are we supposed to do with that?
And Uncle Ben dies within the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. And he's also more relatable, and you could just see how much of an impact he made on the other guy's life.
Yeah.
Whereas Big Daddy, I think he's like, hey, Daddy, it didn't hurt as much getting shot. He's like, that's because I used high caliber rounds, baby. And then it's like, love you too. And then he dies, and just like, what? Anyway, the point being that this movie, I'm okay with the tone it chose and the fact that it's not going to quite hit an emotional high. It's cotton candy. This is definitely a cotton candy movie and because I enjoyed it so much and I can rewatch it, or rewatchability factor,
there you go.
I'll give it a 1.5 bump over Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
I'm glad you set yourself up for that one. You found that movie as rewatchable as The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor?
More. Oh man, that does have Brendan Fraser. No,
that does make sense. You did give this movie higher than the 7 that you gave Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Yes, I did. So overall, the acting was great. The music, which we didn't touch on much, was also really good.
The music is really good.
And I heard that they did try to do a mixture of sort of reminiscing or trying to create an atmosphere similar to both, Superman and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. They tried in multiple scenes to sort of weave that in there. So I appreciated that because that's kind of what they were doing. So anyway, overall, really fun time. Would watch again.
Cool. Well, the thing that I like about this movie is the things that you see in the choreography that they took from it and planted into a better movie that comes out later.
Yeah. I think for the most part, though, we can agree, good movie.
Good movie.
AJ, you want to crunch those numbers for us?
Kingsman, by the way, in case you didn't know.
I had a feeling.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about Kick-Ass 2.
Yeah, right.
The better movie coming up later.
So group average for Kick-Ass is a 7.5. That ties it with Hellboy. Well, that's a archive episode there. So a little bit number skew there.
Wait, are you talking about
we have also
the first Hellboy?
Right. No. That's very early on, and things have.
We might have changed our scores if we did it again.
Yeah. But we have another comic, kind of gritty character in Blade at a 7.5. Silver Bullet 7.5. Contagion and Jennifer's Body.
This
This is a weird range of movies.
That makes sense. Like, I put this exactly on the range of a lot of those, I think. They're different movies, but...
Well, like Hellboy and like...
Hellboy, he said it's our archive episode, one of our first episodes. We might have changed our thoughts since then. So don't... Nix that one, Noah. Think about like Blade, Jennifer's Body, like all those movies.
I think
like,
that kind of fits the other ones. Hellboy, I agree, though. I think
especially
that one,
like
in retrospect,
I think Jennifer's Body is the closest, like... Yeah, you know, those kind of are, they're on a similar level.
I would even say Blade. I'd say Blade makes sense.
I think Blade's better than this.
I do too.
I disagree, but
just
that's
topping it at 7.6. We have the Chronicles of Narnia: The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
All right.
And that's kind of my dipstick benchmark, what have you. And I kind of was like, where is this on a scale of Wardrobe versus Prince Caspian? And kind of in that area.
Yeah, it's closer to Wardrobe.
Atlantis, The Lost Empire, 7.6. Jason and the Argonauts, 7.6. And below it, we have, just mentioned, The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian at 7.4. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. And World War Z is all the way at 7.3. But
yeah, I'd put Rise of the Machines and World War Z over this one, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like it's a fitting score overall.
Yeah. Overall, it's in good territory there. Moving on to critics. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 76% with an 81% from audiences. On Metacritic, it has a 66 with an audience score of 8.4. And on IMDb, it has a 7.6. So very much like across the board, people feel the same way about this movie. It's pretty much down the middle. Everyone's like, yeah, I enjoyed Kick-Ass. Like it, but no one's like, best movie I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's always just kind of skirting that line there of just like, yeah, good, enjoyable.
Yeah. That was exactly my review. It's like just it's perfectly watchable, but it never does anything that makes you think, oh, that movie.
It doesn't raise the
great.
stakes.
Yeah, it
like
doesn't raise the stakes. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing revolutionary in any way.
Or like outstanding in its genre, at least.
Box office, movie released wide on April 16th in 2010. Also playing in theaters at the time, another Christopher Mintz-Plasse movie. How to Train Your Dragon. Date Night. Death at a Funeral, and Clash of the Titans, another movie we've covered.
Can we cover How to Train Your Dragon? Can we do that?
We can do that.
Oh.
If someone wants to pick it later.
We should do a Christopher Mintz-Plasse
either dragons
series.
or animations, or both.
Yeah. Noah, what do you think this movie did worldwide at the box office?
What did you say its budget was again?
I didn't say it. So budget $30 million.
Just make a guess.
30 million.
30 million. Oh, I'm gonna say
million.
that's pretty cheap, but I don't think it did amazingly, but I think it did well enough. So I'm gonna say 150.
150.
Yeah.
Arena.
160.
I hate you.
AJ.
What was I expecting?
I'm sorry, I missed. What time of year and what is its competition?
Year is 2010. Competition is How to Train Your Dragon, Date Night, Death at a Funeral, and Clash of the Titans, and it is budgeted at $30 million.
Can you use it in a sentence?
No.
120.
120. AJ, you're
Hey,
the closest.
I did not give a single number, did
No, that spoils the game then.
Well,
Why did you do that?
I don't know why.
All right. David, on which side is he the closest, though?
100 million.
I can't do it. I gave you a hint. It's too close.
No, it's fine. It's
Redacted.
fine.
Okay, David, you win. How do you feel about your win?
Fine in the sense that I had the 100 as my go-to score. No one has to believe me.
No,
But
I
that
trust
was the
you.
number I had in my head.
And we don't.
Yeah, you just triple it and add a little bit more. I think I follow your logic.
Man,
Yeah, so-
it doesn't feel good, to be honest.
You won. You took it from AJ. That's fine.
I promise
Get a chance.
No, it was my fault.
all
It was
good.
my fault. It was my fault. I take full responsibility
That's
for
fine.
that. The movie made $96 million worldwide, so tripled its budget. That said, I hear tell that this movie was not profitable. I did a little bit of digging, but probably not enough. I think that there was some mismanagement going on, or something happened with the budget, and it got inflated beyond what we're seeing with that 30 million. So there's some like sketchy numbers going into this one, especially because it was like financed in a different way than you're led to believe. I also maybe like Lionsgate overspend it on advertising or something for this one, hoping that it would be bigger than it was. But I hear that despite this movie making 3 times its budget, it still was not profitable. So it's still regarded as like not a success, and that it did not make money. That said, I think DVD sales, Blu-ray sales were fairly impressive. Like, it did pretty well on that end. So it's more of like, maybe this was just, it broke even. It didn't make a lot of money, but it broke even. It wasn't one of those like, wow, what a dud, let's never return to this well again because it was such a terrible bomb. It was more like, hey, that kind of made, like, I think it made some waves, and amongst the comic book nerd community, it had like kind of a high value. And I think it after this, like, not enough damage was done to this newly established brand to completely write it off, because it kind of just showed just enough, like, oh, there is a bit of a following here, or a community here that is here for Kick-Ass. That said, Lionsgate did not fund a sequel for this movie. They kind of dropped it. Universal took it up for the sequel, which is weird. I think it was mainly because Lionsgate was doing pretty good at this point, even though I still don't consider them as one of the big production companies. I think this was around the Hunger Games time. So they didn't really see Kick-Ass as something to, put a lot of stake in. Mm-hmm. But Universal, which was not doing as well at this time, which it sounds weird because today they're like on top of the world with all the Jurassic World movies and the Minions movies and all the, like, they're big into the horror genre as well, with they have a deal with Jordan Peele with Nope and Us and Get Out and all the Blumhouse movies and all that. But at the time, I think Universal was looking up to snap up new franchises, and they picked up they bought the rights out for Kick-Ass to fund the sequel. And it actually only took 3 years to return to the well and dip back into the Kick-Ass pool. I used well twice in a row, but, it's late, and that's what's happened.
Take that well to the well.
Take the well to the well, as David says. Well, I don't know what that means, but sure. But yeah, not particularly successful with Kick-Ass, but it made just enough to, I have to think that this was the people who made this were like, hey, we reported it as 30 million, it made 90 million. Under normal circumstances, that would be very profitable. Like, yeah, this was different, but hey, maybe with a sequel, since this first movie was pretty well received, we will get a greater return. So that's why we've got a Kick-Ass 2. Do you all have any thoughts on this? Do you think this should have ended, or do you, at this point, like, I know we've all seen the sequel, but would you have wanted to see a continuation of this?
I would have.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's enough there to kind of grow into something better, too. Like, it's a good platform for it. And so I would like to see those characters developed more in a sequel.
Yeah.
And not to reveal too much, because we've already seen the second one, but it does go the right direction, at least one area.
Yeah.
I would say.
He has armor.
He learns.
Yep.
Things.
He grows in martial arts or something. I don't know.
All right. AJ, how about you? Did you want to see a sequel after seeing this?
Yeah, and there's obviously a lot of potential in the character of Hit Girl as well. So.
Agreed. Noah?
I agree. I would like to see it again. Not again, sorry. Second one.
You would like to see the second one again?
Not.
We'll get there.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that.
All right. Well, lucky you guys, there is a sequel.
Oh!
Hey, oh, gee!
Next week, we'll be talking about Kick-Ass 2. Sequel to Kick-Ass 1. With that said, good night, good morning, good evening, whenever you
Good
may be listening.
riddance.
Y'all have a good time out there. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Show's over, motherfucker.